In today's video, we're going to have a go at making Valentino from the new Disney Wish film. I've brought him to the cinema so we can see where I've gone wrong, because I can't remember what pattern he needs on his back. So let's go watch it and find out. So I'm going to make this guy an internal structure. He's going to be a cake topper, but he's fairly large, fairly heavy for one. So I'm going to cut some bamboo sticks. These are like food safe things because they go in as dowels in cakes. We're going to hot glue gun them to like a little cake board that I've cut to the shape of the body. The hot glue is not food safe, so I am going to have to cover that up. Also, if you have a little saw, that's going to be way better than me, how I hacked at those legs. I'm going to stick one on for the neck as well as the four legs as well, guys. Kind of like a little table with a bit sticking out the top. But to make it food safe, I've covered the whole thing in tin foil or aluminium foil. I cover the whole cake frame, well, it's not a cake frame, the whole little internal structure for it that we've made in tin foil or aluminium foil, just to make it food safe. I'm not going to be eating this one, but still, this way I know it's food safe. Now I want to bulk it with a bit of Rice Krispie treats, so I'm going to melt my marshmallows, and I'm going to also use the melted marshmallows as a bit of a glue, so I'm going to stick those onto the top of like my little frame, and then I'll start putting the Rice Krispies around. So it's just Rice Krispies and marshmallows melted together. Just in case anybody does sneak a bite of this one, then at least I know it's all edible. It also reduces the amount of icing that I use. It's quite expensive. It's the like modelling chocolate and the modelling paste that I'm going to use for this guy. So the more Rice Krispies I can get in there, the more money it saves me. But also it's a good base, gets the shape right underneath. Also, it reduces the weight. So we've rolled a ball for the head as well. I'm going to use modelling chocolate to start with, and I'm just bulking out underneath the body. So I don't need a huge amount, just a little bit under there. And then I'm going to smooth off the top of the body. So I've kneaded the modelling chocolate so it's nice and soft. You can smooth it down with your fingers, or if you want, you can use like one of these kind of tools. Anything kind of rubbery that obviously is food safe. These are little spatulas. These are the Cerat ones. I'll link below the video actually to what I'm using. They are on my website as well, but I'll put the links there for you. So we'll just get it nice and smooth. Keep adding it a bit at a time till you're happy. And you saw earlier that I did print off a picture. Just to help me get him to the right size, the right proportions. Even with the picture, I still don't get it quite to the right size and proportions, but it helps. So I'm going to add a little bit now to the legs. So I'm using my template again just to work out how the legs go, because he's got like, you can see like bends in his leg, and obviously the sticks I've put on are fairly straight, so I'm going to cover them in the modelling chocolate, and then I'll have to shape them so they look like they've got bends and joins in them, even though they haven't. Let's bulk out the top of the leg a little bit. I'm going to add on a bit of extra bulk for the front of the foot or the hoof. Is it a hoof on a goat? I'm not sure. And then a little bit at the back, and then we'll also bulk out the front legs. So you can see I've pushed and shaped that back leg a little bit on there. I'm going to cover the head. I'm going to go fairly thick in the modelling chocolate on the head. That way I can press in pretty deep when I want to do like the eye sockets. Now the modelling chocolate does just stick to my Rice Krispies without me having to add anything to it. I'm pushing for where the eyes are going to be, and then I am going to have to bulk out the bottom of the face a little bit. Just make sure I know where those eyes are going. Let's enhance those eye sockets by just adding a little bit of extra modelling paste kind of where the brow is. And I've tried to pull it out around the sort of the jaw area a little bit as well. I'm going to push that onto the wooden skewer that's sticking out there. Fill in the neck a bit with a bit more modelling chocolate. Smooth that down the best you can. Now I'm going to cover over the whole of this in modelling paste. You can get the modelling chocolate nice and smooth and use that as your outer layer, and you can paint it up afterwards in food colours and food dusts. But for this one, I am going to get it as neat as I can underneath, and then I'm going to go over with another layer but of modelling paste over the top. So I'm trying to add his nose. I definitely did not get that nose and mouth area correct. Mine ended up a bit more like a beak. But it's one of those where when you're making it, you don't necessarily notice how wrong it is until after you've finished, and then you take a look at the pictures and you realise you didn't get it quite right. So I'm just bulking out the cheeks a bit as well, filling in any gaps and missing bits. So you can see the leg is now shaped, even though it's got that straight stick in the middle. So really rounding things off the best I can. Okay, and now let's cover things. I'm going to start with the toes or hooves. Did we say it's a hoof on a goat? I'm not sure. So I'm going to put a little bit of black on the bottom of each leg or each foot, Just nice and thin, otherwise it's going to add too much bulk. Now I know goats have toes, don't they? I think they have a little slit in the middle. You don't see a lot of it on this one, so I haven't added it on there. And we're going to cover a lot of this with fur shortly. Just trim any extra off that you don't need. Then I've gone for a light brown. So this is just my brown mixed with a bit of white. You can stick to modelling chocolate as well, still for the outer layer if you want, but the modelling paste I thought dried that a little bit firmer for me. The modelling chocolate can sometimes get a little bit too warm in my hands and go a little bit soft. So once that's on there, while it's still soft, see if you can get little hairlines in. I'm just pushing them in with the Dresden tool. Now it was pretty cold in here and the paste was set in fairly quickly because of how cold it was. I think I still managed to get the hairlines in there. This is the time-consuming bit, adding the hairlines. But you're going to do that to each leg. Exactly the same on the back as the front. Once the legs are done, I'm going to cover the head. So I've gone fairly large with this piece. I've rolled it slim-ish, fairly thin. I've not rolled it super thin because when I put the hairlines in, it almost cuts into it. So if I go too thin with this, you'll see the colour of the modelling chocolate underneath. So I'm just trimming any extra off from around the edge. Just pushing down on the edges to blend out the seams. I'll cut it around the bottom of the neck. Just thinning it a little bit on there so that it goes more smoothly into the body. Now the eye area, I'm going to remove some of this paste. I was just going to push it in deeper, but I think I'm just going to remove that because I want to add a lighter colour brown in there. And it'll end up too bulky if I just keep adding more and more on top. So yeah, let's remove that. So that's just white with the brown mixed together. So I've rolled it not super thin. Then I've thinned it a little bit in the middle with the balling tool. And then I've cut it to the same shape as the piece that I've removed. And then we're going to push that into that socket or into that space that we've removed it from. And then I'm going to use the balling tool to just then roll in exactly where I want the eye to go. I've actually ended up cutting a little bit of that out just to get rid of some of the extra bulk. And the eye area is the bit that you want to play around with to get it right. Because I think the eyes are what make this character cute. Then the nose and mouth area. So I put a piece of that pale brown on and I sort of pulled it up the face a little bit. I cut it sort of in half across horizontally so that we had top and bottom part of the mouth. It was definitely too long. I kept having to take more and more off the end. Yeah, looking back, I wish that I had gone smaller still. I did, like I say, keep cutting more and more off as I went along, but it still looks a little bit too long and beak-like. Just trying to blend in little pieces where you could see seams. Just adding an extra bit of tuft of hair up near the top of his head. And then we're adding more hairlines. So I went to see the film as well so that I could see what he looked like. Although I did make him before going to see the film. But then I got so engrossed in the film that I didn't pay a huge amount of attention to the details on him. The nose we just marked in with a Dresden tool, and then I put a little bit of pink edible dust on there. So we've put the hair on, we have dusted the nose a little bit pink. We're gonna fill the mouth area with a little bit of black paste. I'm gonna put a pale pink tongue just over the top. I'm gonna dust a bit more of the food colours. It does look like a makeup palette, I promise it's not. It is edible food colours, guys. And then a tiny piece of white for his teeth, just near that bottom part of the mouth. And then we're gonna use some really dark brown for eyebrows. Then we're going to fill those eye sockets with a bit of white modelling paste. Now you can use fondant if you want, guys, but modelling paste is much firmer and so easier to use for this kind of thing. Fondant is sometimes a little bit soft. So we're going to texture his eyebrows with some more hairlines, and I'm just going to wet the eyes where I'm going to stick the pupils and iris. Going to do the same with the body, so anywhere that I'm going to put his pajamas, I think the pajamas he wears, we're just going to wet so it sticks. Now this colour is almost the same colour as the modelling chocolate. It's a little bit darker in yellow than the modelling chocolate, but yeah, I wish I had just dyed the modelling chocolate a bit darker and I could have just left it rather than having to put an outer layer on this. So I'm trimming it everywhere that it meets, and I am trying my best to rub out the seams. You do still see them a little bit, but I think it wasn't too obvious, the seams. We need to push this underneath the body as well, see if we can get it to meet in the middle underneath. And then I'm going to stretch it around the legs, trim off the extra at the collar, and also trim off the extra around the legs. So Richard read online that the lady that designed it had a pet goat that wears pajamas, and that's why this is wearing pajamas, if they are pajamas, but that might not be true. Richard read it somewhere online. So I'm going to smooth down the outfit. Just going to press in light indentations behind sort of the back of the leg. And then let's draw an indentation around what would be like, would it be the cuffs of your pajamas? Around the top parts of the legs, and we'll just stick some little lines in there. Then let's roll a lighter yellow piece for the collar. So we've rolled a strip, and then I've used a small square cutter to cut out little bits going along the edge, and then we just want to press it on nice and firmly, sort of up against the neck, trim any extra off the back. And then let's paint him up a bit. So we're going to use some edible dusts. I'm going to use a mix of brown and black together, I think. And I'm going to dilute it down with some rejuvenator spirit. So this is all edible. It's like food grade alcohol. And of course you can just use clear alcohol for this if you want. You want to dilute it a lot so that it runs into those little indentations we put in earlier for the hair. So when it's really runny, it will run into those lines and it will look darker in the creases. The thicker you have the paint, the more it's just going to kind of cover the leg everywhere rather than just in those creases. So can you see how diluted it is when I'm painting it onto the head? And then I'm going to go around and colour the iris with a brown edible pen. So you can use the paint that we've already mixed if you prefer for painting around the eyes, but I like to use the pens. I find them a little bit easier to use. I'm going to darken them a little bit around the very edge still though. So I've used the pen for the main bit of brown and then a thinner brush with some of that food colour dust that I've mixed already. Add a bit of water to the pupils so that it goes a little bit sticky, and then we can add some white highlights. This is just white modelling paste that I've rolled nice and thin. On this character, on the image I looked at, they look too more kind of rectangular shaped. Often they're kind of circular shapes. So I don't know if I got this quite right on this one. And then I'm rolling a really thin piece of black to go all the way around the outside of the eye. Again, I could have gone a little bit thinner with this. It felt really thin when I was rolling it out, and then when I put it on, it looked thicker than what I was thinking it was going to look. Now the top sort of lashes or line around the eye is thicker though, so you can roll that a little bit thicker. Make sure it's got a thin point on the inside edge though, and it just kind of creates an arch above each eye like that. So for the ears, I am going to roll some more of the colour that we've used on the legs and also some pale pink. Make sure the pale pink is really thin. Then I'm going to roll them together, and let's cut 2 ear shapes. So we're just kind of making up the shapes for this. I'll cut around the one I've already done to create the second one. I am going to try and shade them so they're a bit darker near the top and the insides with pinks or even reds as you get to the very top. It's not going to be too obvious this until you, well, it's not going to be too obvious even when you really see it. I'm going to turn them over and just put some little lines on the back and also on the pink bit too. Take off any extra pink, and then we're just going to fold it in half. Not all the way down, mainly at the top bit. Now I have made the ears really oversized. Like, I don't think they're quite as big as this in the film. He does have big ears though. I've made them really quite big. He kind of reminds me of Judy Hopps. I know he doesn't quite look like Judy Hopps, but something about him reminds me of Judy Hopps. And then they're quite big, so they're wanting to flop. So I'm just resting them against these wooden sticks just till they dry. When I took him to the cinema, I know who takes a cake topper to the cinema. Richard snapped off his ears. Yeah, I wasn't very happy, but I suppose I did take him on a trip to the cinema, so I guess that's what's going to happen. So it's just a teardrop for the tail with some little lines in. I will need to colour that up to match the rest of the brown on him elsewhere. And then let's paint that pattern. Now, I could see he had stripes on. It wasn't until I went to see the film that I noticed that he does have like a pattern down the middle of these stripes, which I didn't end up getting around to add in. But I did darken around sort of the little elasticated cuff bits around the legs, almost like a mustardy colour that I used for this, and then painted some diamonds and triangles on that collar area too. Then I just needed to give him a bit of a tidy up and a finish by just dusting anywhere that I thought needed to look a little bit darker with the edible black powder. And if you want to lighten anywhere, you can just use a white powder. I've just put a light bit of shading on sort of the underneath of him with a darker yellow. And then I realised after watching the film that he does have this little bum bit on the back. I don't know what it's called, the little flap at the back of pajamas that you can undo when you need the toilet. So let's get that on there quickly. And there he is, there's Valentino all done. I love this character in the film. Have you seen the film? Let me know what you thought of it. Let me know what you thought of the songs in it actually, guys. I'm interested to hear what you all thought. He didn't survive his trip to see the movie. Let me know, guys, what other characters you would like to see me make on here. I enjoyed the film and thank you for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, guys, you might also like this video.